I want next week to be a mailbag version of prospects. If you are watching somebody this weekend, tell us like, hey, I'd love your thoughts on this. Whether it's a player who's on your favorite team or whether it's somebody who you're just watching college football on Saturday and you go, yo, this dude's going off. I would love for next week's show to be completely fan driven. Tweet at us or message us on Instagram at Tampa Bay Trey, at Connor J. Rogers. You can message the show as well at PFF_NFLSE. The best way for you to get in on the show, though, honestly, it's the YouTube comment section. Those are the ones that we read first. We respond to those first. We get those guys on the list first. So I'd love to have enough submissions to where we can make it a full show that is just answering some NFL draft questions of what do you guys think of this guy for a stock up, stock down, new name, all that good stuff. And it be addict driven, if you will. Welcome to the opening bell of the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That is Connor Rogers joining you on another Stock Up, Stock Down edition of NFL SE. We're in week 5 college football. I think we just got done with week 4. We're heading into week 5, so we're going to be taking a look at some week 4 performances, tell you who's moving up and down the big board. More up. Because we're trying to uplift on this show. It's not quite stock down season. They got a little bit of time. It's a new season. But we're also, as we have done over the last couple of weeks, give you a player that we think can make the jump from day 3 to the top 50, and then a new draft prospect name for the podcast that we have not talked about here on this show through summer scouting or the season. Connor, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good, man. Always enjoy doing these, just getting new names out there and watching guys that are, doing a lot for themselves earlier in the season. Like you said, we're not doing a ton of stock down. Maybe a quick mention today, because it is still September and you want to be fair, and a guy could have years and years of, tape out there, and after one bad game, you don't want to write him off and bury him. But
he's cheeks.
Yeah, he's done. You maybe prior to UDFA, probably going to the spring league. It's just like, come on, man. I tell you what, and I know you notice this too. It is entertaining on Saturdays, in maybe not the best way, but in a funny way. Like, people are out here just living play by play with prospects,
dude.
See, I told you QB1, and then the next play, like, oh, maybe I was wrong. Maybe 6th round. It's actually very entertaining. It's
great, and I'm victim of it plenty of times.
We're all human.
Guy makes one play.
Who was the corner on the Colts that you slandered?
Oh, brother,
is it Jalen Jones?
Yes. Did you?
Great.
Okay, for anybody out there that might have missed this,
it's very funny tweeting.
This might be a cold open. I don't know if it'll be funny enough for Ryan to make it the cold open, but we're gonna get to it at the very start of the pod regardless. So before the games start on Sunday, I'm perusing around. We're watching the pregame. I can't remember if it was Fox or CBS or whatever, and they show a look live, like, oh, we're watching the Colts warm up, and there's a corner wearing 40, and I only see the front of the jersey, and I'm like, good God, man. I knew it was bad in Indy secondary, but I didn't know it was this bad. And I quite literally tweeted, I understand that the Colts have had, struggles in their secondary with injuries, but I didn't know it was starting an outside corner wearing number 40 bad.
Week 3.
Well, number 40 is actually Jalen Jones, former Texas A&M cornerback, former 5-star cornerback. Jones, to my defense, wore 17 at Texas A&M. And when I saw this player wearing number 40, it did not click in my head that it would be Jalen Jones, because I thought that he would have a better number than that.
Especially by now.
But he wears, right, that's what I'm saying. But he wears 40, and what does he do? Well, he says, who the hell is Trevor Sikkema anyways, and gets 2 interceptions in that game.
It's like, who in the hell is Mel Kiper?
Absolutely cooked my ass. Put me in the sous vide. Smoked it on the grill for 18 hours.
Yeah, he turned you into stir fry real quick.
He did. Which is great. It's always the fun of Twitter. Shout out to Jalen Jones, an incredible day, having 2 interceptions, getting the big win for the Indianapolis Colts. But that was a very funny moment on Twitter. Anyways, let's get into this stock up, stock down. I think we should start with the one player on both of our stock up lists. Right. And that is Miami quarterback Cam Ward. Ward, through the first 3 weeks of the college football season, set his own personal records with single game passing grades highs. 90.5 against Florida, 91.0 against Florida A&M, 90.3 against Ball State. Then this past weekend against USF, just a 68.8, so it's a little bit less. He had 2 big time throws and 1 turnover worthy play, but another 400-yard performance, 434 passing yards in this game, 3 passing touchdowns. I mean, he's got 14 passing touchdowns and 2 interceptions on the season. Ward is playing really well for college football standards, but Connor, I think more importantly, he is at least standing out amongst a quarterback group for the 2025 NFL draft class that had a lot of promise for guys who could stand out, but it just hasn't really panned out like that for most of these guys. But for Ward, it's a different story. So what'd you think of Ward this past week against USF and then just overall over the last couple of weeks here?
I've been really impressed, and I understand, there's going to be people out there and be like, well, like, the schedule, and you could say that for just about everybody right now, right? Like Jackson Dart has looked really, really good as well, and everybody's going to look at the schedule. With Cam right now, we've known what he does really well. He could do some high-end stuff, whether it's the escapability, rolling out, making a play when everybody's improvising, doing some special stuff like that. And obviously has legitimate rushing ability. I think he's one of those guys that naturally changes arm angles to, throw from different slots and throw through different windows and around and defenders. Cam checks a lot of boxes in terms of if you were saying, let me see his 10 best plays, where you'd go, that guy's probably a first rounder. The problem before this year with Cam is that he's a wild man. We talked about this over summer scouting. I mean, he just would not let a play die very often. And it wasn't just the interceptions or the turnover-worthy throws. There was a lot of fumbles on tape that seemed unnecessary, the overall awareness. But you always fall in love with the special stuff that he can do. And this year, through 4 games, what you're seeing is a guy that things are slowing down from him with all the play experience he got at Washington State. And now he's taking that to Miami, a Miami team that is very, very talented. And he's a big catalyst of that because he looks composed. He looks calm. He looks like a guy that knows if I stay in the pocket or manipulate the pocket or just kind of shuffle in the pocket and reset the pocket, that's going to make me such a better player because then when I pick my spots and escape the pocket, the defense is really on their heels. Now you watch defenses and it's Cam Ward, right? So what do you want to do? You don't want to lose contain. You want to keep your eyes up when you're rushing on the edge and make sure that you don't allow him to roll out and beat you that way. So what Cam has realized in this game of chess that not a lot of quarterbacks can naturally do is, well, if they're going to be very cautious about not letting me outside and overrush, I have some room. I can play in this pocket. I can trust the phone booth a little bit more and throw from within the pocket and have more time than other quarterbacks because of how much they respect my game getting outside. So I think just he looks like a composed, experienced player, but he's still doing some of the special stuff, whether throwing the whole shot throws, throwing through windows, rolling out and making a pass down the field, picking up first downs with his legs. That's what's been so impressive to me. Comfortably reading the field. This is, I think, my favorite thing that I've seen from Cam Ward this year is he'll drop back and go, okay, 1, 2, I know where my outlet is. Where the Cam Ward of the last couple of years to me was drop back, okay, 1, 2, let's run around and do something crazy and not let this play die. And Cam understanding the balance so far of where my outlet is, throw it, versus, you know what? I can kind of extend this one and maybe make something special happen. Towing that line has led to him having a massive touchdown to turnover worthy play ratio, which has always been his problem, is that gap has been so narrow. Now it's not. Let's see where the rest of the season goes. But if he stays on this trajectory, Cam Ward will be in contention to be my top quarterback in this draft. I'll say that right now. And honestly, if I was saying who's done the most for themselves this year, or who I think has been the best quarterback prospect, it's Cam Ward in my eyes. And I think Quinn's done a lot of good things. Shadur's had some moments for sure. I said Jackson Dart's playing really well. Taking all those into account, Cam Ward's been the best quarterback prospect this season.
I agree with you, and that's why we have to talk about him here, right? I mean, the game versus Florida, it was like, okay, that was a really great statement from Cam. He bounced back, and he really took care of business against 2 opponents that he should have. The grades are a little bit less against USF, a much more formidable opponent, but When you look at his big time throw percentage, so we're talking about how many big time throws he had in the game versus how many throwing attempts he had just in general. That big time throw percentage is still a career high for him, or right around a career high for what would have been the last couple of years. And his turnover worthy play percentage, even with finally throwing a turnover worthy play this past week, amongst how many passes he had in that game, that was still a lower turnover worthy play percentage than to what you said, than what we have seen for his career over the last couple of seasons. So Ward, this is the best version of Cam Ward that we have seen. And I think it's really important to remember that part, right? When we did summer scouting, you and I think as a show, we were just lower on Cam Ward than a lot of other people were out there. A lot of people were very enamored with the confidence that he played with, the different arm angles that he could really release the ball from, which are all strengths of his game. The big time throw ability, a lot of that stuff is there from Ward. He has got that backyard style sometimes, and some people were more in on that. You and I don't want to speak for you, but it seemed like when I looked at sort of consensus rankings, we were a little bit more cautious when it came to
I had him
Ward.
QB5.
We were, so. and you had him higher than I did. So,
but I didn't have him in the top 3 or anything like that.
But I was, and myself, certainly, I was putting a little bit more weight into that cautiousness from him, just because you look at sort of the background. He's coming from a wing T offense where he didn't have a lot of experience in high school.
Yeah.
It's Incarnate Word for 2 seasons. Then it's Washington State for 2 seasons. And it's like, okay, you've played well at times throughout those 2 different football programs. Now you go to Miami. He is not only in the most sort of pro environment that he has been in throughout his college football career. He's regularly playing tougher opponents, and I think he will as this schedule goes on, which I'm excited about. But he's also just straight up playing better. This is the best version of Cam Ward that we have seen yet. And I have no problem challenging my summer scouting thoughts on a player when the tape is there for it. And for Ward, we're now 4 weeks into this thing, and they take on Virginia Tech, who they're not ranked, and they've had a really disappointing season, but this is still a talented defense for Virginia Tech, so this is a good test for them. They then take on Cal. Then they go to Louisville, which I think is going to be a great test for them. They host Florida State, and maybe Florida State can get, on the right track. And then, as the season goes on, they've got Georgia Tech a little bit later once we get on into November. So is it the murderer's row that the SEC is this year? No. But Ward will have plenty of times to continue to show us, hey, this version of me that you saw in the beginning of the season, this is who I am now. And I still think that Ward can hit the big throws deep down the field. Sometimes I question the velocity a little bit. Like even that whole shot, I think Jordan Reed tweeted it out. It's that opposite hash whole shot between cover 2. Love the anticipation. Love that he was able to get that ball there. It doesn't have like that top tier NFL zip to it, but it's adequate enough to make a throw like that. And I think that is something that you got to keep in mind moving forward. Ward, I will echo what you said, has done more for himself than any other draft eligible quarterback in this class. I think this week specifically is a really big week for the quarterback class. Carson Beck goes up against Alabama. Jalen Milroe goes up against Georgia. Bama plays Georgia this week, and that is huge because I talked about Jalen Milroe as a riser last week on last week's Stock Up episode. And if he continues to play well against Georgia's defense, we will be in a situation where we got to start talking about Jalen Milroe, and then we would continue to talk about Cam Ward if he can take care of business for Virginia Tech as the top 2 quarterbacks in this class, I think. So that's what this weekend has at stake. I can't wait for next week's episode of this very show to where we get into a little bit more solidified picture of what this 2025 quarterback class has been like. Because for the most part, it's been pretty quiet. And Cam Ward is standing out because he is the guy who is climbing the ladder higher than anybody else versus the expectation that we had in the preseason.
And I think one thing that I will always make me fall back to Ward, and this is the only reason I had him not the only reason, but one of the reasons I had him QB5, and he was a little higher than I expected to have him when I went into watching tape, because we got a lot of questions about him last year before he decided to go back to school, is that he has something in this class that Milroe also has, but not a lot of the top guys have. he can fall back on his athleticism and his ability to create plays. And I think he's a more accurate player when he does that than Milroe, although he has more experience, so that makes sense. Beck, Ewers, and Shador, to me, are not overly creative in terms of NFL runaway speed. Like, I'm not talking about just like college runaway speed. I don't think those three are the type of escape artists. And I think that's something that Cam will have as a calling card, that if a team values that, then you're going to like Cam Ward better than those guys.
Can I just go on a little quarterback rant here for a second?
Please.
We expect way too much out of quarterbacks.
Oh, it's wild.
I
Look
mean,
at the rookies right now.
That's sort of what I'm saying, man. Like, It's all kind of fun and games. I get it. We all love the next guy that's coming up, but we're now getting NFL franchises and college football programs that are operating under this. Freshmen are supposed to sit, right? Rookies are supposed to sit. And it feels like we're not getting that right now. I don't know if it's pressure from the fan base or what, but
I'll tell you what it is.
Go ahead.
It is the conundrum that the NFL has right now of owners. I'm not going to blame the internet on this, but the internet is something that has enhanced it.
Hell yeah, get real boomer with it. Let's go.
This is such a boomer
alienate
take.
The audience.
It's such a boomer take. Owners read everything said about their franchise now.
Of course. Yeah.
And I get they used to do that back in the day, but back in the day, I think teams had different relationships with newspaper reporters and writers than nowadays. There are different sections of media than just that. There's the national media, there's team media, there's blogger, podcaster media. And I don't say that making fun of it, because I am that in every single way, or at least initially was. And then there's fan media, right? Like people that like, they are always going to cheer for the team, but they are fans first. That's a lot of different things happening. Owners reading and digesting all of that. It's such a week-to-week league now that the patience to build an NFL team or program is at an all-time low. And when it's at an all-time low, people are getting fired at a rate that is so much quicker than it ever used to be, that you don't feel like you have the choice, right? Like we're looking at, and this is a bad week to bring this up because the Giants won, but I feel like if the Giants lost this week, the conversation was going to turn in New York to Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen have a good chance of getting fired, and they never even took a quarterback throughout their tenure. Like, this is what I'm talking about. Why these guys play so quickly is because teams think that if they don't play them, that they can get fired, because they need that guy to show something that continues to instill belief from ownership before you get fired. And it's a trickle effect around the league right now that is leading to poor results for the majority of the time.
Absolutely. And the reason why I bring it up is because we might just have a developmental quarterback class on our hands here.
I think we do.
Right? And
I'll say it right now.
Right. This might not be a quarterback class where you think of, I know looking back on it, it's funny, but that actually strengthens the argument of what we're talking about here. You look at that 2021 quarterback class. All of those first rounders, Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson,
Mac Jones and Trey
Lance. They were all, maybe outside of Mac Jones, but even Mac Jones, because of the success that he had at Alabama, everybody looked at these quarterbacks as, oh yeah, you draft them, you start right away. They're good to go. Mm-hmm. It's just the expectation. We expect way too much out of quarterbacks right now. You see it at the college level, right? I know there's a lot of things that go into this. Jackson Arnold gets benched in the Oklahoma game. Your 5-star quarterback, you're benching in the game while you're still alive, while you still have a chance. What are you doing? It's like week 3 of the college football season. You're benching this guy already? Now
right.
you got a quarterback controversy on your hand because you benched the dude, because you showed we don't believe in you. Why'd you do that? Probably because you started him way too early and because he wasn't able to operate things under pressure or adversity the way you wanted to, like no rookie is going to be able to do, like no freshman is going to be able to do. We treat these quarterbacks that should be viewed as pleasant surprise outliers as the standard. It's like we think that all rookie quarterbacks, people thought that Kaleb Williams was going to step in and just beat CJ Stroud again. And yeah, we obviously talked about how great Caleb Williams is as an overall talent. CJ Stroud's rookie year is so rare. It's not the bar. You can't hold other quarterbacks to that perspective. And the reason why I'm bringing all this up is because I look around the league. Look at how bad Bryce Young is mentally broken, because he very clearly should not have been playing year one. But they named Bryce the starting quarterback before the season even began. Because why? To your point, you feel like you have to. Face the franchise you drafted him number 1 overall. Andy Dalton showed us this past weekend that at no point in time in Carolina has Bryce Young been the best quarterback on that team. At no point in time. So why is he playing? Why is he playing? You're ruining your investment by doing something like that. Look at what Malik Willis is able to do right now.
He's a great example right now.
Malik Willis has a little bit of time to settle into the league. He looked unplayable when he was with the Titans. Now, obviously, Matt LaFleur is a great coach, but Malik Willis looks better as a quarterback. Why? It's time. You don't feel like the world is on your shoulders. You can evolve from it. Now, that's not to say that every quarterback does, but to throw these guys out there to the Wolves is crazy. And again, the reason why I'm bringing it up and I'm going on this rant is because there's going to be a lot of quarterbacks in this quarterback class that could be damn good pros that I feel like this league is going to throw out there because they feel like they have to. They're going to throw them out there right away, and they're going to ruin some promising careers before it even happens. Because this right here feels like a developmental quarterback class. And this goes into a grander argument that we don't even have to get into about the fact that if you're playing young quarterbacks at the college football level before they're even ready, well, you can't put a lot on their plate. So you're giving them high school concepts, you're giving them high school things to run, you're not developing the offensive line properly, and now the NFL, we've got a massive offensive line problem at the NFL level, and we've got a massive quarterback expectation problem at the NFL level, and it's because college football the NFL, as the great Bill Parcells said, the NFL can only take what the college gives them. And college teams are getting so damn impatient to play all these young freshman hotshot quarterbacks right away that they're not really developing in programs that matter. They're not really developing in offenses that are translatable outside of whatever their school is running. The offensive lines are struggling because now it's all about just getting the ball out of their hands quickly in a vertical manner. So offensive linemen aren't exactly developing the way that they need to. And now you got a big problem in the pros. So
and that's a great point. That's a great point from you about it happening now in college where it never used to, because it's so easy to transfer and there are so much NIL dollars out there that I'm not saying any of that's wrong. I think it's good that you can transfer and play the next year. I think NIL is amazing. But the point is, I think it's not great that a lot of it is unregulated, and that's another issue.
I would agree.
The fact is that you have, and we talked about Nussmeier last week being the opposite of this, you have guys that are going to go to a school and say they don't play as a freshman, and then in the offseason, another school comes to them and says, hey, we'll pay you twice as much as you're getting and you get to start here. They're gone. And every school knows that if they have a freshman quarterback that's worth, something. That's the problem right now, is that there's this uneasy sense of, we have to do this now because if we don't, we could lose this guy or we can get fired. And I don't think it's going to change, but I do think it's creating problematic results across the board. And I don't think these guys that I'm about to mention will ever live up to their draft status. But look at how Baker Mayfield has turned his career around. Look at what Sam Darnold is doing right now with the Vikings. I don't think they're ever going to live up to where they were taken, but they're professional NFL quarterbacks right now that can operate an offense compared to when the situations they were previously in. They looked like a deer in headlights over and over again. And at what point are we looking at all these samples and going, okay, maybe there's something to take away here? And you're still going to have misses. Like, you're still going to have guys that the light just never turns on.
Of course.
But at the end of the day, there are clear results with actual development and situations where you're set up for some kind of success. And of course, coaching. I'm
passionate about this again, because it links into, this is probably a developmental quarterback class. And I'm passionate about this, not because I want to, this whole like, get off my lawn. I mean, Lord, I've never sounded older than what I do with this rant right now. But the point of this isn't like, oh, they're, I'm trying to say they're ruining the game. The point is, I love the draft. I love scouting these players. I love seeing what their potential is. Like you mentioned, some guys, they're just not going to hit. But I think the process that we have for quarterbacks specifically is right now an environment that does not breed development. And that's an issue for this quarterback class because I think we got some damn talented quarterbacks who just aren't ready to probably start in the NFL their first year. And that's okay. And I wish the NFL would see it that way. I don't know if they're going to. I think this is going to be a talking point that we are going to continue to have throughout this draft cycle if this quarterback class remains sort of the outlook of one that, hey, it's just a developmental class. That's okay. Just draft him as such. Have that sort of a plan. And I think that there could still be some good ones in this class. Cam Ward is one of them, to bring it all full circle there. Okay, before we get into our more of the stock up players that we have here, whether it is a touchdown, a tutty, a TD, taking it to the house, in for 6, whatever you want to call touchdowns, one thing is for sure. They matter more at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. If it's on the ground, in the air, special teams, or defense, it doesn't matter how they score them. We just want to bet the touchdowns. DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one place to bet touchdowns this season. If you're ready to place your first bet, try something simple. Just bet on a touchdown. If you're looking at a game in the NFL this season, you say, man, this is a great matchup. I think this could be really high scoring. I think this player specifically has a very good matchup this week. Throw some cheddar on the line. Say that they score a touchdown. New DraftKings customers, they bet just $5. They get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one place to bet touchdowns this season. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the promo code PFF. That's promo code PFF. For new customers, get that $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only at DraftKings, the crown is yours. If you got a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, it is 877-8-HOPE-NY, or you can just text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problems with gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gambling resources, visit dkng.co/FTBALL. All right, who else do you got on the stock up list for this week?
We'll go down the board. We start with Cam Ward, which is like the ultimate talking point across the draft in college football right now. How about Hollin Pierce, the colossal left tackle for Rutgers? He is 6'8", 340 pounds. This lad. He's
young Amarius Mims out here. Does he hold the weight as well as Amarius Mims does?
He is massive. He's got a pretty good build, all things considered. Mims was a one of one human I've ever been around. Yeah. But this Hollin Pierce he's well built at this position. He has been with the program since 2020 and has a lot of experience. He started 12 games in 2021 at right tackle. Another 12 games in 2022 at right tackle. Then last year, he started every game at left tackle, and he's doing the same thing this year, which you always love those guys that give you a couple years at right tackle, a couple years at left tackle, sure. Because at the end of the day, they can come into the NFL and maybe have some swing tackle ability, especially a guy like Pierce that comes into the season probably looking like a priority UDFA and is now trying to play his way into being a draftable player. And he's doing it. The left side of this offensive line right now, Brian Felter is their left guard, another guy with a lot of experience who plays next to Pierce. They are run blocking their ass off right now, Trevor, for Kyle Monangai. I mean, complete demolition in the run game. You brought up Virginia Tech not looking so hot this year. Pierce demolished them off the line of scrimmage, play after play. Put it in perspective. He had 28 run blocking snaps in this game. Mm-hmm. The way the PFF grading system works with run blocking is, obviously, you can do your job and just have a net 0 grade, as we often talk about. He had a plus grade, an impact run blocking play where he did something extraordinary. 12 of the 28 run blocking snaps. He's just taking people, and a lot of it was inside zone. He's just taking people and moving them off the line of scrimmage, whichever direction he pleases at 6'8", 340 pounds. He's got work to do in pass pro, right? He really does. At 6'8", 340, he needs to work on his pad level. He's naturally going to play high. I don't think he's the most nimble guy. But if you want this brawler type to run behind, Pierce is putting out phenomenal tape this season. The left side of this offensive line is putting out phenomenal tape. This is a Rutgers team that they can run the ball. They are winning games by being able to run the football. And he's someone that, you always like the guys that, hey, there was no expectations coming into the season. And to me, he looks like a draftable tackle now that has a ton of playing experience.
I got to get him on the list for the mock draft simulator, which, by the way, guys, we got 93 players on the mock draft simulator right now. I watched 10 new wide receivers that were not in the MDS and put them into the MDS over this past weekend. So we got 93 total players. 32 of them are wide receivers. We know that you guys love to draft wide receivers at every single round that you possibly can. So I wanted to make sure that every time you guys kind of brought up a receiver that you would love to have in the mock draft simulator, I'm going to get them in there for you. So I got to circle around to some other positions now that I've got so many wide receivers on there, but I've got 30 plus guys in the MDS for you. And we'll start the stock up, my side of the stock up with one of them, Kobe Hudson from UCF. This is a fantastic football player. Brad Spielberger, PFF legend, former NFLSC alum, pointed out Kobe Hudson to me. He was like, hey, he didn't even tell me that he thought he was good. He was just like, hey, Kobe Hudson from UCF, can you give me some thoughts here? He's a senior wide receiver, measures in at 6'1", about 200 pounds. So it's 48th percentile, 46th percentile. So he's right around average. It's below 50%, but it's right around average there for him. He used to be a quarterback, Connor. He was a dual threat quarterback when he was in college. His junior and senior year, he was a dual threat quarterback. Also played basketball, but he was somebody who was going to transfer over to wide receiver, and he did once he got to UCF. No, actually he was at Auburn first. He was at Auburn for the first couple of years. Didn't really get a ton of playing time. Transferred over to UCF, and now he's a major part of their passing game, and he's been playing really, really well. The basketball background shows up for Kobe Hudson because he runs routes like he's got a basketball in his hand. He's running a fast break on you, and he's trying to cross you up. Like, I love guys who have this sort of like playmaking multi-sport mindset where when he's running a route, if he's coming at you, if he knows he's ultimately going to break to the left, he is going to shoulder and head fake to the right and then put that foot in the ground. Boom, I'm right across your face. And that's a really good way to get defensive players off of you before they can make contact at the break points. It's also just a really good way of not allowing them to feel like they can undercut the route one way or another. You're keeping them second guessing. You don't know what's coming next. You don't know if it's going to be a juke. You don't know if you're breaking right away. You don't know if it's going to be a double move as well. And Kobe Hudson already shows you that. So he's got great nuance as a route runner. And when you think about how he didn't really play wide receiver in high school, the last 4 years have been a developmental wide receiver arc for him, then that sort of makes his journey a lot better as a player, and it makes you appreciate it so much more. So this is a player who I think is absolutely a stock up candidate. Could have been a guy who I thought was a day 3 player who could potentially even jump into the top 50. I don't have him in the top 50 in my rankings right now, but the nuance in which he plays the position, even for being as new as he is to it, it's really nice. The playmaking stuff, tempoed his route speed. When he remembers to have his hands up to sort of hand fight, he knows how to clear defensive backs' hands to make for a clean catch point for him pretty easily. Top speed, I'm sort of reading my notes here now. The top speed for him, probably average at best at the NFL level. I think he lacks that separation gear, but he's a really nice contested catch player. He likes to go up and get it, and he loves the big moments too. When he makes those big catches, he'll be the first one to let you know. He's pointing to the scoreboard. He's feeling the energy of the fans. He's a wide receiver like that through and through. So this is just my type of dude. Kobe Hudson, I think that he's already had a really great year this year, and I think that it's going to continue for him. So one of the 32 guys that I have on the mock draft simulator is now Kobe Hudson. And of the guys that I watched, these new players for the big board that we've talked about here on the show a little bit. I watched him. I watched Jalen Royals from Utah State. I watched Kyron Lacey. I watched Taj Felton from Maryland, a guy that you brought up here before on this show. I watched both of the Illinois guys as well, both of the Colorado receivers, and a handful of other guys too. I liked Kobe Hudson the most out of all of those players. And I think that might sound like a surprise because Jalen Royals is in that conversation. Kyron Lacey was in that conversation of the guys that I just watched, but give me Kobe Hudson over all those guys right now. So he was the highest on the big board once I got him in there.
UCF has it going on offense right now. Did you see this kind of surprised me when after Colorado pulled off a miracle against Baylor.
That was
It's
crazy.
Insane. Rushing 5 on a Hail Mary is certainly a choice, but to each their own. So after the game, I was curious. I was like, UCF has talent. They seem well coached. I was like, I think them and Colorado open as around a pick, or maybe they'll give Colorado, a point. I don't know. UCF opened around as 11.5, 10.5 point favorites, and it's only gone up now to over 2 touch. It's 14.5, which I'm not saying I disagree, by the way. I think Colorado has their fair share of issues as a football team, but that says a lot about where UCF is right now and the skill talent they have, and obviously he's a huge part of that.
This won't be the last time I talk about UCF either, because it was a big UCF appreciation week as I was going through the big board and getting people on the MDS. So this won't be the last time that we talk about UCF, but I wanted to make sure that I brought him up because I really like this wide receiver. He feels like he's going to be one of my guys in this class. Like, you know how Javon Baker was getting a lot of love, certainly at the end of the last draft cycle. A lot of people were getting to Javon Baker's tape and they were loving him. I feel like that's going to be the Kobe Hudson effect. And Baker, I felt like, should not have been a 4th-round pick. I felt like he should have absolutely been a day 2 guy. I get the same sort of vibe with Kobe Hudson there from UCF. But who's next on your list? Who else you got?
Another guy like Hollin Pierce that, comes into the season, probably priority UDFA, trying to play into draft status, and is, for sure, is Trey Rucker, the safety out of Oklahoma State. He was originally at Wake Forest. He's a super senior. He's been in college football for a while. He was a starter for Wake Forest 2019 team. So he started 9 games in 2019. Trey Rucker. He is. I mean, he's been in college football for a long time. Transferred to Oklahoma State in 2021. He had a redshirt year in 2022. Last year, he started all 14 games. He had 100 tackles. He was out there a lot. This year, and specifically this week, 2 picks against Utah, making some big plays in coverage, 10 tackles, 1 tackle for a loss. Rucker is someone that when you look at this league right now and all the conversations around the safety position specifically, he's someone that's played a lot of football. He's played a lot of special teams already, and he's played a lot of different roles in the secondary. That's somebody that you draft on day 3 because you're getting a player on your roster that can play specials from the safety position and give you depth because of the roles he's handled. And being a guy that is a tackling machine, is now finding the ball, making plays in coverage in the open field. Trey Rucker is popped out of the gate this season. And this is the benefit of these guys that get this extra eligibility. They get more time to develop, more time to be comfortable, and know their role in the defense, and somebody that is having a big impact on Oklahoma State's defense right now.
Oh, you're saying that, once again, giving guys time to develop could yield good things?
What a concept.
That's crazy. Where have I heard that before? Maybe 15 minutes ago.
The first 25 minutes of the podcast today.
I do like that shout out there for Oklahoma State. Who do they play this weekend? Did you mention it? They have a big game this weekend.
I did not. Got it. After Utah, they have another big game.
Yeah. Who is it?
I'll pull it up right now. They have Kansas State.
Kansas State. Yeah.
Which is a big game.
Yeah.
Kansas State is currently ranked 23rd.
Right.
Man. Yeah, Oklahoma State, they're pretty good.
A little bit of gauntlet here for them.
Yeah, they're pretty good. That was a close one with Utah. They lost by 3 points. It's a soul crusher.
Who was I watching? I was watching somebody the other day. Damn it, I can't remember who it is. I was watching a tight end the other day, and they were playing against Oklahoma State. Who's Oklahoma State played? You know what? We're going to figure this out.
I just told you.
Oh. No. Earlier in the year. They played Tulsa. They played Arkansas. San Diego State. No, maybe it wasn't this year. Maybe it was last year. Maybe I was watching some tape from last year. Anyways, some tight end that I was watching went up against Nick Martin, the linebacker from Oklahoma State. And I'd already watched a little bit of this tight end. I can't remember who it is. I got to find out. But before the rep even began, I knew what was going on. I knew it was going to be a run play, and I knew this tight end was going to have Nick Martin one-on-one. And I went, Nick Martin wants it more than you. And then I hit play, and sure as shit, Nick Martin, who the tight end probably outweighed him by 40 pounds.
No
Nick
matter.
Martin just goes straight into his chest, bullies him. I was like, yep, Nick Martin wants it more than you. He's a fun draft prospect, man.
It's a good
really
t-shirt if you're Nick Martin's NIL people out there.
Yeah. Which they listen to the podcast, obviously. So
there you go. Free ideas. That's the last free one.
All
like
right.
when we advised somebody take steroids. I don't remember what prospect it was, but we don't give out free advice
all of
often.
them? What are you
but when
talking?
we do,
We want all of them to take steroids. What are you
we
talking
do.
about?
But especially the guys that need 20 pounds.
I want Danny Stutzman to go on the Brian Cushing arc.
Well,
I
mean, it's just perfect. It's too good.
Okay, everybody. The time has come. We've read the mentions. We've read the tweets.
Boy.
I have
He's
watched
caving
it.
to the people. I respect it.
I am giving it to the people. Kaleb Johnson, the
Yeah, we had
FBS's
to do
leading
this one.
rusher from Iowa. We have had so many tweets about Kaleb Johnson. You guys have just flooded the mentions, and the first one I was like, oh, all right, yeah. Like I haven't heard of this guy, but I'll definitely get him on the list. And then you guys tweeted at me again, and then you tweeted at me again, and then you tweeted at me again, and then you tweeted at me again. I was like, all right, fine, I'll throw him in there. I wasn't gonna go with running backs because I had actually already watched a bunch of running backs, and so I was moving on to wide receivers and then going to tight ends and keeping that flow going with my prospect watch list. But I had to go back and watch this guy, and he's a lot of fun. He's not like RB1 in this class yet, but he is a ton of fun. Kaleb Johnson, the true junior from Iowa. He's listed at 6 feet tall, 225 pounds. So he is, as Benjamin Solak would say, a healthy young man. He was just a 3-star running back in the 2022 class. Ended up playing basketball and track when he was in high school. He was initially committed to Cal. I read this before flipping over to Iowa. Played in 13 games with 6 starts as a true freshman. Actually led the team in rushing as a true freshman in 2021. Played in 10 games with 5 starts last year, but he missed 3 of them due to injury. He is healthy now. He is good to go, and he is now leading the FBS in total rushing yards. This dude is a north to south runner. He is really smooth and explosive for a player that is 225 pounds. He puts his foot in the ground, and he can accelerate, and he can really get upfield. And I think he generates a ton of speed to power. I think one of the traits that I love the most about Kaleb Johnson is the fact that arm tackles do not phase this young man at all whatsoever. If you want to bring him down, you got to wrap him up. You got to stop the legs from moving at all whatsoever, because if they are going to move at all, they're going to bounce off whatever contact you're giving him, and he's going to continue to churn up the field. I will say this. He leads the college football in rushing. You got to shout out Iowa's offensive line, okay?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of Kaleb Johnson's best plays. Now, I'm not totally taking everything away from him. A lot of Kaleb Johnson's best plays, Iowa is bulldozing people, either off tackle or mid to outside zone. And he is just running in a straight line, gaining speed. If a linebacker can even get there, like I said, he's shrugging it off and he's continuing to go. But a lot of his production is driven by Iowa's offensive line right now. He does have a pretty good missed tackles forced per attempt average. He does have a pretty good yards after contact average as well. So that's why I don't want to totally take everything away from him. But if there's one sort of weakness in his game, I don't see great lateral agility. And that's okay, right? I mean, some guys are just more north to south runners. They have a purpose to get upfield. They're getting the line of scrimmage. They're getting beyond it. And that's sort of what Kaleb Johnson is right now. But I'd be curious to see what that run style would be like behind a non-Iowa offensive line, because right now it's so easy for him to get a full head of steam and just to pick up a ton of yards. Whereas, for example, I think both of these guys are very physical running backs. So I actually went back to watch one game of Kyle Monangai this year after I watched Kaleb Johnson, because I was like, okay, who do I like more here? I like Kyle Monangai more because Monangai will really read the offensive line. He will read his rushing lanes, and then his lateral movements are almost as impressive as his explosiveness and his power moving forward and getting downhill. I just don't see a lot of that with Johnson, and it is fine right now. It seems to be again, I hate calling it a weakness, part of his game that the spotlight isn't really shined on because he is a part of an Iowa offensive line and Iowa blocking group that does very, very well for him. But when you get this guy a clear lane, terrifying. Hard to tackle him. He can erase the angles. He can get up the field, and he's got great top speed for a player who's 225 pounds. So the people's running back, he is in my top 10.
He is the people's running back.
He is in my top 10 running backs, but he didn't quite crack that top 5 list because you got to remember this running back class is stacked as well. Ashton Jeanty's number 1. You got Quinshawn Judkins. You got Omarion Hampton. You got Ollie Gordon. You got Kyle Monangai. You got a player who I'm about to talk about in 10 minutes at the back end of this show where I'm talking about a guy who's going from a day 3 player to potentially a top 50 pick. He's in the mix with sort of that next group there, that second tier of these running backs in a loaded running back class. So that's sort of my early scouting report on Kaleb Johnson. To be honest with you, I'm excited to see Iowa go up against some good defensive lines throughout the rest of the season because I want to see what Kaleb Johnson is like when that first read, that first rushing lane isn't open because right now a lot of them are and the holes are big for him to run through. So let's see when it's a little bit more challenging, but he's got a lot of athletic talent for a player who's 6 feet tall, 225 pounds as a running back.
I'm with you. Just, the overall creativity is what you always like to see when things get a little tighter and close quarters against tougher teams. And listen, the mentions, we were joking over text. We were like, we have to watch this guy and do this because if we go one more week without it, our show's going to get canceled. Not even by us.
Yeah.
Somebody's just going to hack in and delete the feed or the YouTube channel.
Might be Ryan. Might be the producer. He might be part of the people.
He might nuke it himself. All right, so those were my stock up guys. I have one stock down mention, a day 3 to top 50 guy, and a new name. Did you have any more just generic stock up guys?
No, that was it for me. And I didn't have a stock up guy. I talked about, a stock down guy. I talked about the quarterbacks. I talked about Graham Mertz. I talked about Jalen Daniels last week as stock down guys in the quarterback class. You have a stock down guy?
A quick mention for me, and it's kind of weird to say this because he did have an explosive touchdown run, but it's Donovan Edwards. Mm-hmm. I just, the running back out of Michigan, for those that don't know, he had a bad fumble. I don't think this has been a great season for him so far.
No.
Where I know, we're going to have the combo is he one of the best players in this offense in general right now. And I think this is kind of perfect because of some of the players we're talking about today. And you tell me if you feel differently, Trevor. It feels like he's going to get a little lost in this running back class. And I'm not 100%. Saying he's going to fall and not get drafted. That's not what I'm saying. Donovan Edwards, once upon a time, was viewed as this, maybe in line of the Jahmyr Gibbs route in terms of talent and usage. And
he's on the cover of CFB 25.
He's on the cover of CFB 25. And I just don't know if he's going to be a top 8 running back in this draft. This isn't really shocking news because over summer I had him as RB9, but I don't know. I just always want more from Donovan Edwards. I always want more. And maybe it's going to take a different offense to unlock that, but it's just not consistent, in my opinion.
I love Donovan Edwards as a sophomore. Loved him.
I remember.
Thought he was awesome.
You were the first person I ever heard talking about him.
He was him and Corum. I mean, I was talking about wait till this next dude gets a full load of carries. And junior year was worse than the sophomore year. This year seems worse than the junior year. I don't know, man.
What's going on?
Yeah, and it's the problem for Donovan Edwards is now he's out of eligibility, and it's a stacked running back class. So you had him as RB9. You have him higher than I do. I don't even have him in my top 10 backs.
Yeah.
So there's too many talented running backs in this class. In a different class, maybe it'd be a little bit different. You could sort of lean on the talent there. But I agree with you, man. Edwards is struggling. He needs a strong second half of the season. I would love to see it for him because he's got to be able to make a name for himself and remind everybody why he was a highly touted recruit, why those first couple of years when he was at Michigan, he was sort of the talk of the town as the guy coming up next. Need to see it from him for the second half of the season so he can really put his best foot forward as we get into the draft season. We got new names and we got guys who we think could jump into the top 50. Coming up in a second, but before we get there, football season, it is underway. And this season, we are listening to a new podcast called The Offensive Line with Annie Agar. Annie is an NFL insider. You might know her from her uncomfortable team meetings on social series that you guys probably see everywhere, whether it's Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all that stuff. She's still doing that brand very, very well. On the Offensive Line podcast, Annie kicks it back with NFL stars, celeb super fans, going through all the week's lines, odds, the game spreads, everything with the usual brand of sharp wit, banner, humor, all that good stuff. So it's covering the NFL, previewing the NFL, but with some humor injected in there as well. The pod's packed with must listen stuff to keep up with the latest in NFL news and culture. You guys can follow the Offensive Line podcast on the Wondery app or wherever you guys get your podcasts. You can access bonus episodes as well and listen ad free by joining the Wondery Plus app. Which one do you want to talk about first? You want to talk about a new name, or you want to do the top 51?
I guess I'll do a new name because it's an easy transition, as I also have another Michigan player on this list. So Michigan fans, maybe you hate me after the Donovan Edwards stock down. Stick with me and give me a chance. My new name player is Josaiah Stewart, the edge rusher.
Oh, hell yeah. He was a monster this past week.
Just looks unblockable for this team right now. I'm doing a film breakdown for NBC Sports on him, and the tape is just out of this world. He's so interesting to me, Trevor, because as a freshman in 2021 at Coastal Carolina, he has 12 and a half sacks. At 12 and a half sacks as a freshman. And he eventually transferred to Michigan.
Like I've always said, guys don't need to sit. They don't need to develop.
Just play throw him into the fire.
Just play freshman right away. We've always said, just play him right away.
Why are we wasting time?
Right. No need to waste time.
You either have it or you don't. And you know that in 3 snaps, okay? I knew right away that Bryce Young couldn't play in the NFL.
Welcome back to 3-snap scouting, where you get 3 snaps and you're either cheeks or you're heading to Canton. It's one of the two.
Josaiah Stewart, pick 101.
There it is.
So Josaiah Stewart absolutely demolished USC. He had 8 total pressures. 2 of those pressures were sacks. I think another 3 of the pressures were quarterback hits. One of them was a strip sack, which was an absolute bananas play. Go watch it if you haven't. But he is so explosive as a stand-up rusher off the edge with his first step, and understands he's 6'1", 245 pounds. So naturally, he's winning the leverage game. And this is something I liked about Mo Kamara last year. He understands when a tackle's hands are off, he knows how to dip around them, turn the corner, and his chase speed is A+. I mean, it is hard for a quarterback to get away from this guy. And then you look at it and go, okay, well, is he a pass rush specialist? You watch the reps against the run. There's times where I see him hold the point of attack, set a hard edge against a tackle that's twice his size. And when he's playing the run from the backside, he is so damn fast, and his motor is running so hot. He can track down running backs if there's any delay in the play from the backside, which is how he had a tackle for a loss right near the goal line against USC. This dude, I think he's going to test really well. He's very, very fast off the ball. If he starts to round out how he's winning off the edge, it's not just that speed rush and dip. He's going to be a nightmare to deal with. Michigan's got all this talent, but this dude's not getting a lot of love. He is now. I've seen it pick up this week because he really kicked the shit out of USC. It was a demolition, and he had a big week 1 against Fresno. But he's got it, Josaiah Stewart. He can rush the hell out of the quarterback, and I was pleasantly surprised by how he holds up in the run game at his size.
He is already on the list of guys that I'm going to be getting into the mock draft simulator pretty quickly. He's on the list for next week, actually, so I need to watch him. But I saw some of the biggest plays from him this past week, and you're right. Just the explosiveness that he had off the edge. It looked like it was just too much for USC's offensive tackles. He was attacking the outside shoulder with so much success.
He beat both of them.
At will, yeah. And you love to see that sort of versatility that you have there from Josaiah Stewart. So I got to get him, as well as his teammate, Derek Moore, on the mock draft simulator as well. But shout out to Stewart as a new name that we haven't talked about on this show. I will stick with the Michigan theme. And I will go with the running back who might be starting to steal opportunities and carries away from Donovan Edwards, being able to get back on the right side of draft analysts' scouting reports. Kalel Mullings, their running back, who, I mean, you talk about a guy who has just been a true college football player in one hell of a college football program over the last 4 years. Connor, so Mullings this past week led the team in rushing, had over 100 yards rushing in this game. He was fantastic. And I wanted to get him in the group because a lot of people were bringing him to my attention. A lot of people were tweeting at us about him. I did not know this about him. I had never heard of him, so I wondered if he was, the next like hot shot running back that they had on the team, true sophomore, maybe redshirt freshman, somebody who was up and coming. He is a senior. He is a redshirt senior. And I read that he was actually a linebacker recruit. He was a 4-star linebacker recruit in the 2020 class from Boston, Massachusetts.
The old Braylon Allen?
I mean, yes.
That was Braylon Allen, safety linebacker recruit.
He was named the 2019 Gatorade Player of the Year for the state of Massachusetts. So this wasn't just some linebacker who like walked on at Michigan and then changed positions because they needed him to. He was a really good linebacker recruit, played both linebacker and running back when he was in high school, to be fair. Played in 6 games, mostly on special teams. He also got to play 4 as a depth linebacker his freshman season. Played in another 13 games the next year, mostly on special teams. Some contributions at linebacker in 2021. In 2022, he played 10 games at linebacker, 3 games at running back, and then last year played all 13 games at the running back position while also playing special teams. Now he's actually getting carries. Like now he is actually a legit option in this offense as a running back. And that linebacker background shows up immediately in how he runs the football. It really does. He's got the number 1 rushing grade on the team, 89.2. So it's nothing to scoff at either. He's got over 400 yards, which, as you would expect from me reading his background, obviously a career high. He's got more yards after contact, 285, than Donovan Edwards has total yards this season, 224. Didn't mean for Donovan Edwards to catch another stray right there, but that just goes to show you how determined this guy's run style is and how fun it is. Like he is a Damian Pierce or Tyler Algier like type of running back where their whole goal is to just hit you in the mouth. I want to make contact with you. I want to lower the shoulder, and I want to show you that I want it more than you. And that's his entire play style. And look, does he have the getaway speed? I haven't really seen a ton of it yet. The forced missed tackles, it's much more from bouncing and breaking off tackles than it is, making guys miss in space. But he's got a little bit of wiggle to him. He likes that north to south run style to be able to get those positive yards after contact and always be somebody who is falling forward. And just, I love guys who have multi-position, I would say multi-sides of the ball, position versatility, because you know what the other side is looking at. When I watched his tape this past week against Minnesota, it was a team, against USC, it was a team, or it was a game plan that had them looking for cutback lanes consistently in the run game. And where Donovan Edwards sort of struggled to see it at times, Mullings sees it well. And the reason why he does is because he can read the flow of where the linebackers are going to be. He can look at the linebacker on the other side of the line of scrimmage before the ball is even snapped and say, okay, I know that we are running to the right. It is let's say a mid-zone read to the right. But these linebackers are creeping over so far to the right, I know that my rush lane's probably not going to be open there, but the cutback lane's probably going to be open because they're playing too high, there's 2 safeties deep, nobody's coming into the cutback lane, and I saw multiple spots where he was able to do that, and I watched a couple of games before as well where I sort of saw the same thing. So he just has a really great feel for flow and run lanes because he's been on the other side of things. And I love that part about him. I love the physical nature. The NFL game is all about, you've got to be physical. There is a physical prerequisite to playing in the NFL. And I think that Mullings, where I don't think he's going to be this feature back at the NFL, a depth piece, a special teams piece, that feels like what his background has built him to be as a guy who could really stick on and be a pro for a team and a coaching staff that would love to have him.
And that's impressive, right? I mean, it really is, especially at this point of your career when you're a grad student. You're at a team that we know they're just loaded with championship talent. It says something about your character, and you talked about his running style. It feels like the two kind of mesh together.
Yes, 100%.
So,
last guy, what are we doing?
Day 3 to top 50.
Mm-hmm.
Tyler Warren, tight end out of Penn State.
Yes.
So, Tyler Warren was my tight end 4 during summer scouting. And I remember when I talked about him to you, Trevor, I did the whole Moneyball kind of bit of he could do all these things. There's just one problem. Sometimes he cannot catch the football. I mean, there was just plays in 2023 where the ball just hit him right in the hands, and you're like, I don't understand. he's catching everything this year. And Warren is a guy at, 6'6", 250 pounds, probably weighs even more. He is what an NFL inline tight end looks like, but he has the versatility to do move tight end things. He threw a touchdown this week. And we talked about Warren.
I saw that.
He threw a touchdown. And we've talked about Warren before because he played quarterback in high school. He was, a good quarterback in high school. But college tight end that I thought on the 2023 tape, he blocked his ass off.
Yes.
But now this year with Theo Johnson off to the NFL, he is such a big factor in their pass game as a seam runner in a lot of different ways. And as he had a rushing attempt, I think, for 16 yards in this game. He had the Boobie Miles game. He really did. He threw a touchdown, can run, can catch, paint the back porch. Warren is a really unique player in that regard that I love that he can go to the NFL in a run-heavy league right now and live on the line of scrimmage, but be a red zone factor and be a legit factor in your pass game and allow you to play heavier and heavier. And I think that if he's going to consistently make plays in the pass game and be reliable as a pass catcher, not a splash play guy, I could see him sneaking into the top 50 because everybody's looking for a tight end that is athletic enough to not downgrade us when we go pass heavy, but doesn't have to come off the field because we want to establish the run and play really heavy. And that's going to be a value going forward with the trends of the league.
Recently, there was a bunch of tight ends I watched. I watched Gunnar Helm from Texas. I wanted to get him on the big board. I watched Harold Fannin Jr. from Bowling Green. Wanted to get him on the big board. And tight end's sort of a tricky position, so I went back and I watched at least one game of a lot of the top 10 tight end prospects that we had going into the class. Because I was like, okay, where would I fit these guys in the rankings? I liked what I saw from Tyler Warren so much this season that I watched 2 games of him, and he's tight end 2 for me now, behind Colston Loveland, for everything that he can do. He had 6 or 7 drops last year, 0 drops this year with higher emphasis. His threat percentage, his wide receiver usage percentage is 26%. And he gives you, like you said, the ability to actually play a tight end on the line of scrimmage and get multiple uses out of him. And I think that can't be understated in what he brings to the table, even from a guy like Colston Loveland, who I think is tight end 1 in this class. I mean, Tyler Warren can sit on the line of scrimmage and he can block his ass off, but now he's showing that he's a great receiver as well. Shit, he didn't even have any contested catches this year because he's open.
Yep.
He doesn't. 0. I looked at his contested catch numbers and I was like, 0%. That can't be right. And I was like, oh. He doesn't have any contested catches because he's open for all of his targets. And so, yeah, he's playing really well. He's playing really good football. And, tight end 2 for me, just to give you guys a little bit of an update on the big board.
I mean, they're legitimately running Wildcat with him, and he was just plowing through Kent State defenders. It's awesome.
This one might be a little bit of a stretch, but I don't care. I really like this football player. I said that wouldn't be the last time that we talked about UCF when we were talking about Kobe Hudson. RJ Harvey, the running back for UCF. I don't know about top 50. Top 50 is tough for the running back, especially with this class as good as it is, but he was somebody who was an afterthought. He was a redshirt. I think he is a redshirt senior this year, if I remember correctly. Yes, he is a redshirt senior. He was at Virginia. He was a 3-star quarterback. Another dude who was a quarterback as a dual threat quarterback coming out of high school. He played high school football in Orlando. Committed to Virginia out of high school. Redshirted his first season at Virginia. Immediately transferred to UCF after that. Switched to the running back position full time. Was a backup there. Had a torn ACL in 2021, so he missed the entire year. Played last year as he was recovering from the ACL. Ended up making 3 starts last year. And then that's in 2022. He sort of had that recovery year. And then 2023, so last year, he started all but 2 games, rushed for over 1,400 yards. He's 5'9", 205 pounds, so a little bit shorter, a little bit lighter of weight. But, dude, such a great playmaker. I love him in open space. If you get him behind zone blocking, man, he can be so much fun for you. He has that playmaking style that I'm not quite saying he's LaShawn McCoy, because LaShawn McCoy had an incredible pro career. But he reminds you of LaShawn McCoy in the way that he sets dudes up when he gets into open space. He's always looking to make you miss. He just has that playmaker mentality to him. And in a running back class that is very heavily loaded, that still stands out as a trait that I love. The missed tackles forced per attempt average is a little bit lower than what it was last year. It's below 0.20, which you want that much higher. But because of his play style and what I've seen from him and just watching the tape, I believe that that number should and can be a lot higher for him. So RJ Harvey, somebody who is a redshirt senior, a little bit older of a running back prospect. He already transferred once. He tore his ACL. I still love this dude. I think he could be a fantastic back at the NFL level. He's already having a lot of success this year to go along with the 1,400-yard rushing season that he had last year. So RJ Harvey, man, you mentioned kind of the fireworks show it might be with Colorado and UCF, and with them being favored by double digits. He is a big reason for it because he is somebody who could take it to the house when he touches the football because of how dynamic he is. So I hope the nation gets a good look at RJ Harvey if they haven't seen him yet when Colorado plays against UCF this weekend.
Dude, he's a big reason. I would imagine the thought is it's not about Shadur and Travis Hunter, and Hunter's doing incredible things. It's the fact that Colorado's defense needs to show they can stop the two UCF skill guys you've talked about on today's show, that if people didn't know them coming into this week, they will know them coming out of the weekend. That's my take on it. And Harvey, you nailed it. I mean, Trevor, he's averaging almost 8 yards per carry right now.
Yeah.
So one more needs to be said.
Right. Not too bad. All right, there we go. Let us know what you thought of our thoughts on these prospects. And Connor and I talked about this before we hit record. I would love for next week's episode to almost be a mailbag episode for you guys.
It's fun.
I love that you guys are tweeting at us, Kalel Mullings, Kaleb Johnson. I want next week to be a mailbag version of prospects. You're watching somebody this weekend. If you are watching somebody this weekend, tweet at us or message us on Instagram at Tampa Bay Trey, at Connor J. Rogers. You can message the show as well at PFF_NFLSE. And just tell us, like, hey, I'd love your thoughts on this. Whether it's a player who's on your favorite team or whether it's somebody who you're just watching college football on Saturday and you go, yo, this dude's going off. We got to hear about him in NFLSE. What do you guys think about him from an NFL draft perspective? I would love for next week's show to be completely fan driven. We'll read the comments. Best way to do that, though, I mentioned the social media handles. The best way for you to get in on the show, though, honestly, it's the YouTube comment section. Those are the ones that we read first. We respond to those first. We get those guys on the list first. So YouTube.com/@NFL Stock Exchange is the best way to do that. I'd love to have enough submissions to where we can make it a full show that is just answering some NFL draft questions of what do you guys think of this guy for a stock up, stock down, new name, all that good stuff. And it be addict driven, if you will. Connor, you got anything else before we get out of here?
No, you summed it up well. I'm looking forward to that because it allows us to get, I think, even more new names in the show. I think when you have fans of college football, they're in the nitty gritty of like, hey, this guy's not getting enough credit for why my team is doing this well. It's all these guys that are getting the credit. So, and I think it's just another fun way to get the audience involved and us to kind of watch some more tape on some players maybe we haven't seen yet, or maybe some more tape that we can update from the summer as well.
Yep. Looking forward to the weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm actually going to be in Austin this weekend to
very fun
to take a look at the Longhorns in person. Some NFL draft guys there.
You're going for the barbecue, but yes,
I am going for the barbecue. But then there will also be a football game in which I will get to watch Isaiah Bond and Kelvin Banks Jr., Gunnar Helm, Quinn Ewers, Arch Manning, Jahdae Barron, like a lot of guys on the Texas team that could be notable names for the 2025 NFL draft. So I'll make sure that I give you guys my up close thoughts after seeing those guys in person as well. Appreciate you guys as always. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That is Connor Rogers. Thank you so much for watching and listening to the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. We will see you guys on Wednesday.